Okay, Unit 2, it begins what we call the Age of Contact. This is the time after the discovery of the Americas by Christopher Columbus, and this is the period where all of a sudden the excitement builds and the countries, the major powers of Europe, first off was Spain, but later other countries began to explore with the idea of colonizing and expanding their empires. So our objectives are, first, we want to explain why Spain sent explorers to the Americas during the Age of Contact. We want to identify the goals of the conquistadors and describe the causes and effects of Cortez's conquest of the Americas. There's a few terms that we need to cover just so we know what we're talking about. The first one is the Reconquista. Refers to the Spanish battles to take back their land from the Islamic Moors. And we'll talk about that little period of time. But the occupation of Spain would last for almost 800 years, from 711 AD to 1492 AD. The next one is indigenous. That refers to native peoples of a particular place. You could have indigenous people in Australia, you have indigenous people to the Americas, indigenous people to Africa, indigenous people to Europe even. It doesn't matter where they are, but there are people that have historically lived in a particular place. Conquistador, that refers to a military leader of the Spanish conquest of the Americas. And the last one is a big one. It's a big phrase that you need to remember. It's called gold, God, and glory. And these are the three main motivations of the Spanish conquest of the Americas. And I'm probably going to repeat that phrase several times, just so it sinks in. So, as the story starts, in about 711 AD, Islamic Moors. The Moors were a people that lived in the northern part of Africa, on the western side of northern Africa, and they had been converted to Islam. And so, at some point, at about 711 AD, they decided to cross into Europe. As you can see, where Africa comes up from the bottom, it is very, very close. If you look at the map, it's just a short little hop to go from Africa into Europe by way of what is now Spain. And that little area of land was called it's still called the Iberian Peninsula. And it encompasses modern-day Spain and Portugal. And so when they invaded, the people of Spain were really not prepared for it, and they were overrun pretty quick. And so in short order, the Islamic Moors were able to conquer about 3/4 of the country. But they could not completely take the rest of the peninsula in the north. You see like the reddish and the pink parts? Those were still under the control of the Christian king of Spain. So for about 800 years, the Christians in the north and the Muslims in the south, they battled back and forth for control of that land. It was just a constant battles back and forth for 800 years. But during that time, the Moors controlled so much of Spain, they imported and developed their architectural influences, and their culture was kind of imprinted into Spanish society. And so it has a lasting impact. Let me go back. If you go back and see, look at this horse, look at the horse here in the bottom right. You may have seen horses like this. These were this breed of horse is called an Andalusian. It was first bred and developed during the Islamic occupation of Spain, because the Muslims called Spain, they called it Al-Andalus. Another example of it, we'll take a look at some pictures of it, and it is the Great Mosque of Cordoba in Cordoba, Spain. It's also known as the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Assumption. For about 700 years, it has been known as the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Assumption as a Christian church, but it was originally built as an Islamic mosque when the Muslims controlled the area. If you look at some of the pictures of the interior, you can see why. All the architecture inside is very heavily influenced by Moroccan and North African architectural styles, with the pillars and the arches And if you look closely at the top right, you'll see a close-up of an arch and what looks like just some decorative markings along the top, but that is actually stylized Arabic script. Those are actually words in Arabic. And so that influence is heavily, especially in southern Spain. You see a lot of that influence that goes way back, all the way back to the time when the Muslims controlled Spain. So back to our story, about 800 years, the Spanish armies finally succeed in driving out the Moors from Spain. So for 800 years, they've been battling. Their culture, their entire culture and society has kind of been developed around, the glory of battle and the honor of sacrifice. And so after the war had been won, the soldiers are sitting around, they're starting to get bored, right? They don't have anything to do. So an old legend began to go back, be circulated around of the time when the Muslims finally first invaded. And the legend told of 7 bishops of the Christian church who fled ahead of the invading Moors 800 years earlier. And they took all of the gold and the silver and the treasures of the church. They got in ships and sailed across into the ocean to never be seen again. So by the legend that there were 7 cities that were founded by one of them by each of these bishops, founded with the gold and silver that they were able to take to keep away from the invading Islamic armies. And these 7 cities in a never seen land were called the 7 cities of Cibola, the 7 cities of gold and silver. So after Columbus returned with news that he had discovered a whole new land that he had never seen before, that no one knew about, and he actually brought back gold, and he brought back indigenous captives, Native Americans, from the new land, opportunity presented itself, right, for the armies and generals of Spain. They were bored. They didn't have anything to do, right? When your whole way of life is built around war and battle, and there are no more wars to fight, you're looking for something to do. So, real quick order, they organized expeditions. The kings financed ships, financed troops, and provisions to sail across the ocean to conquer the new land for gold and silver, and establishing a Spanish empire and spreading the church, spreading the faith, the Christian faith across the new land. They felt that was their duty as Christians. And finally, the generals and the soldiers, they wanted glory. They wanted the glory of conquest, to be able to say that to have their names in the history books, right? And so you can sum all of this up into 3 words, right? The 3 G's, the 3 main motivations or goals of the Spaniards was gold, God, and glory. So the question, and this is in your notes on page 20, but what were the 3 G's that motivated people to come to the New World? Of course, it was gold, glory, and God. In what specific place were the conquistadors, the soldiers, trying to find? They were trying to find the 7 cities of Cibola, the 7 cities of gold and silver. So a little information on Columbus, just to wrap up him. He was not Spanish, he was Italian. But he finally found, I think it was Queen Isabella of Spain, was willing to finance his journey, and he sailed across the ocean. When he landed, he did not land in North America per se, but he landed on an island called Hispaniola, which is actually, that island today is split between the nations of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And so when he came back, to recap the things, the tales that he had, the gold that he brought back, the new and different people that had never been seen before, that's what sparked the Spanish exploration in North America. He was looking for a faster route to India, supposedly for trading purposes, and then all of a sudden ran into a continent that, quote unquote, no one knew was there. This is here's some examples of some ships. I had opportunity to kind of take a tour of these two ships. These two ships were built as exact scale replicas of the Nina and the Pinta. Columbus had three ships: the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Now, the Nina and the Pinta were the smaller of the three, but you can still see that these ships were, I mean, they look big when you walk up to them, but when you think about sailing across the ocean, and these ships were jam-packed with animals and men and food and supplies, and just to imagine sailing into the ocean, if you didn't know where you were going, you're just taking a chance, hoping you find something, and you never know when you're going to see land again, and it gets pretty crowded. So the next guy we're going to talk about is Hernan Cortez. About 20, 30 years after, about 30 years after Columbus. Now, Spain had been kind of exploring kind of North America, but they wondered what was further south. So Cortez threw his hat in the ring. He organized an expedition, and he decided to start sailing further south. When he landed way further south, down what is now the Mexican coastline, and actually down into some of the modern-day nations that are beneath Mexico. But he began to explore, going through the jungles of Central America, and he would encounter villages, and if they would have some battles, and he would capture some people. But word wasn't necessarily spreading all that fast until he came upon the capital city of the Aztec Empire, Tenochtitlan, which was ruled by Montezuma. And so Montezuma did not, he actually welcomed Cortez, and there's a whole side story with that we're not going to get into, we don't have time. But he welcomed Cortez into the city, believing that Cortez and his men were the gods of legend that were returning to the Aztec people. Well, it didn't quite work out and the way that he had hoped, and so Cortez conquered Montezuma, conquered Tenochtitlan, and half destroyed the city, looking for all the rumored and the legendary gold and riches of the Aztec Empire. Most of it he never found. It had actually been snuck away at the last minute. But upon the ruins of Tenochtitlan, he founded what is now modern-day Mexico City. And here's a little engraving. It's just an artist's depiction of possibly what some of the battles would have been like inside the city. So what year did Cortez land in the New World? He landed in the New World in the year 1519, about 30 years after Columbus. And then what native group did he find and eventually conquer there? That, of course, was the Aztec people, the Aztec Empire. And so here's a question that I want you to think about at home. The question is, the Spanish explorers were motivated by gold, God, and glory. And which of those means the most to you? If you had a reason to sail across an ocean into a new land for a particular reason, if you had to pick one of these three reasons, which one would motivate you the most? And so, as a sentence starter, you could say blank would have motivated me because, it could be glory. You want your name to live, to echo through the ages, like one of the Roman emperor or a famous general, right? It could be wealth, riches, or it could be you want to expand the kingdom of God, perhaps as a missionary. And so that's all we've got for today. We've got some questions for you to answer, and we'll be back to